I'm Amanda Silver.
And I'm Alex Howard.
And this is Dirty Laundry. Welcome back.
Welcome back to Dirty Laundry. Thank you for tuning in again.
How was your weekend?
My weekend was good. Didn't really do much, actually, which was kind of nice. A lot of like kid stuff, soccer, this, that. But secretly, I have been avoiding my family because I am in the second book of this Fourth Wing series. Have I already told you about this?
Is this?
It's like fantasy and dragons, a little bit of smut, just the right amount.
Is it Game of Thrones-esque?
It is.
Because that is I love that.
Kind of, yeah, maybe. Now, to be fair, I didn't read those books. I only...
You have to watch the series.
Well, I watched the show.
Oh, okay,
no, of course I watched. I just think I didn't read the books. It reminds me of like an adult Hunger Games.
Oh,
so
I
it's
love
kids,
that.
a lot of murdering, a lot of death, some dragons. Anyways.
I love it.
And a lot of really titillating moments,
Oh,
if
really?
I may.
So you just want to get into this book?
Yeah. So I literally was just like, hi kids, read. Going to soccer, read. Yeah,
Really?
It's really
Should I read it
captured.
next?
I mean, I would. Yeah.
Okay.
Highly recommend to all those listening. Fourth Wing is the first one. And I'm on the second one now.
Oh, it's actually called Fourth Wing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So good. I wish I was reading right now.
Really?
So good.
You're so funny.
So my weekend was boring. What about you? What did you get up to this weekend? You were going out, you said? Did you go out?
Yes. So I went to a Purim party.
Okay, so for those of us that don't know what that means, say more.
So Purim is a Jewish holiday
Okay.
where we celebrate, the sort of the same thing we celebrate on every holiday, whereas people wanted to kill us. We fought back. We survived. We eat. We celebrate.
Hey, I love it.
Basically the same thing every single holiday.
Okay.
Same beat. Unfortunately.
Same shit, different barrel.
Yes,
I got it. Okay.
Yes. So we dress up, right? There's a lot of, it's like a whole like carnival-y, like masks and fun.
Masquerade.
Okay? Yeah, all of that. So my sister and I planned to go to Rabbi Meir, who we had on
our bestie.
Yeah, to his party at the Yorkville Jewish Center, his Purim party. So we're like, okay,
Love
there's
it.
going to be a lot of like young professionals, singles, mixed,
Sure.
whatever. Let's go do this. So we had these plans for these outfits.
Okay. Based on your look, I'm so excited.
So, in my head, like it's similar to like Halloween. Like Halloween is a chance for you to dress up sort of like naughty.
Oh my God. Are you a slutty nurse?
So I was not a slutty nurse, but I'm like, I have this great police officer costume. It's like the skin tight with like handcuffs and like the whole to do. It's like, yeah, it's very like, it's sort of suggestive. I can't say it.
Great. Listen, you're a single gal on the prowl.
Yeah, it was fun. And my sister was going to wear like this whole cat suit. Ooh. And her friend who's also coming was going to be like a Power Ranger. We had like just like a fun, costumes set to go. So then like 2 days before the party, we get an email that there's a theme.
2 days before the party, they tell you a theme?
There's a theme.
Okay, I'm going to have to talk to Rabbi,
there's a theme. We're like, oh shit, what do we do? There's a theme, it's Gatsby. We're like, cop costume is not Gatsby? I'm like, no, I can't do this.
There was definitely no female cops.
No, we really hemmed and hawed because we were like, we really wanted to go as like what we had prepared and we were all excited to wear it. Thank God we didn't.
Why?
Oh my God.
Because it wasn't on theme?
No, because people barely dressed up. So we would have come and looked like fools. Okay, so my sister decided, she's like, you know what? We weren't sure what to do. She's like, let me just go look at like last year's, party just for reference.
Okay. So
she looks at last year's party and like people were just wearing like black dresses, like the odd little mask, like very subtle. We were going to come and look like absolute,
oh my God.
like Legally Blonde or Bridget Jones.
This is giving me Bridget Jones vibes.
And they're showing like totally like a fish out of water. And like, so at the last minute, I'm like, I'm just gonna wear a black dress and just like a little like head, like a flapper girl headpiece.
Right.
Thank God. Because I walked in there and we just the whole night we looked at each other like, oh my God, we dodged a bullet. We would have looked like morons.
Oh, it's totally Bridget Jones. Yeah. Except you skirted it. She did not. So, not a real easy segue here into our episode.
We're not talking about
we are not talking
Catwoman
about
and police officers. Actually, there you go. Look
you
at
are
that.
the queen of segues.
Speaking of police officers,
queen of segues. So you might be seeing some police officers.
You just might, not a Catwoman, but a police.
I mean, maybe they're the ones in the cell.
The
people that are dressed up. I know. We've gone too far. Okay,
and
stop trying to segue. So on today's episode,
yes,
you and I are discussing the very important, very difficult theme of transitions.
Yeah.
So obviously super common in divorce. Our children are going back and forth to two homes. That is kind of
Their reality.
their new reality.
Yeah.
Their new reality. And as we know, kids really thrive with routine and predictability and structure. So this throws a real wrench in the plan to that.
Yeah.
So we're here to kind of, I think let's give a bit of an outline. So first we're going to talk about what transitions look like.
Right. Because there's transitions that all kids have to deal with.
Absolutely.
And then kids who are in two homes
Divorce
have to deal
specific.
with, more.
Yeah. And then I want to give some tips, some tricks of how you can best support your kids.
How to make it more smooth.
And make it smoother. And honestly, best support yourself because adults feel the transitions too,
Yeah,
right?
it's stressful.
And so, it always goes back to the put your oxygen mask on first. Are you taking care of yourself during these difficult times? How do you emotionally regulate so that you can be a support for your kids? All of the fun stuff. So let's delve right in. So transitions. So generally speaking, that looks like kids starting school for the first time. I mean, speaking of COVID, that was a segue for sure. Going back to school, back to the office, back to camps, back to programs, sleepovers, if your child is of an age where maybe they're getting into that season of their life. I know I spent every single weekend at a friend's house in middle school. Maybe even after. I loved sleepovers, lived for them. So that was not something that caused me any anxiety. I was super jazzed about it.
But it can.
But it absolutely can.
Summer camp.
Summer camp is a big one. That they're not going to see any parents for a long period of time, right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty big stretch.
Yeah.
So it looks like separation anxiety. It looks like tantrums.
Lashing out.
Absolutely lashing out. Fighting with parents. Fighting with siblings. Oh my goodness. Talk about fighting with siblings as if they don't fight enough already. Now you add in this additional new layer of stress. Maybe it's looking like trouble eating, trouble sleeping.
Trouble at school sometimes.
Absolutely. Grades might be slipping or acting out, behavioral issues.
Yeah.
So what that all stems from is really this feeling of insecurity, of unsafetyness. That is definitely not a word. Feeling unsafe.
Yeah, feeling unsafe, not feeling in control.
Yes, control is huge.
Like a little bit of a ping pong.
Yeah.
Because I always liken it, like I always tell my clients, like if you were to go on vacation, you settle into your hotel, you unpack, you get familiar with your surroundings, and then in 2 nights you have to switch again. That would be pretty disruptive. And you probably wouldn't enjoy yourself, and you would probably be on edge. And so imagine these little ones who have to do that every day or every 2 days or every 3 days.
That's a really, really good analogy. And I think that's something that the adults can understand, right? And I think that's key is to try and empathize with your kids as they are going back and forth. I know just on our recent vacation, we were going to upgrade. We got to the hotel room because there wasn't one available. And I was like, fuck it, we're not moving.
You've already unpacked, you're not moving.
I'm not moving now.
And the kids don't have a choice. They have to.
And the kids don't have a choice. Yeah. We make these adult decisions for them as we have to, as their parents, but we don't have to go back and forth.
No, they're the ones going back.
They're going back and forth. And so, I love that analogy. Thank you for sharing that. So what does it look like then? We talked about generalities in terms of transition. So all kids are facing these. So I think just as you're walking around, living your life, remember that. People, humans of this planet.
Yeah, you're going to a new school,
everyone's struggling with
class,
transition.
Everything,
What does it look like for divorce specific? We kind of alluded to it, right? They're going back and forth between homes. Right. So you go into mediation or whatever form you choose for divorcing and you come up with your parenting plan.
Yeah.
And together you as the co-parents have decided, okay, good. Here's our new schedule.
We're doing a 2-2-5, we're doing a week on, week off, we're doing a 2-2-3, whatever it looks like. You've established that. Now you have to actually figure out how the kids are going to
the logistics
actually do it, right? Like, are they going to be picked up at school?
Yeah.
Are they going to be going to, be picked up at someone's house?
Right.
There's some other considerations like for more higher conflict cases that involve police involvement and children's aid and domestic violence. That's a whole other transition, animal. Yeah. So you really have to think about what that looks like. I find personally that a lot of my clients, for the most part, choose school as like the transition because you don't really have to see each other. So mom drops off, dad picks up, dad drops off, mom picks up, which is
low conflict.
It's a low conflict. There's not interaction.
Yeah. You don't have to go to someone's house.
You don't have to go to someone's house.
Yeah.
Which can lead to issues.
Yeah.
And it's a neutral's
good.
A neutral, safe space that the kids are familiar with.
And I think that's the key. The kids are familiar.
Yeah.
And so if you have the luxury of that option, that would probably be my preferred.
I think it's the ideal.
I think so.
And also there's a delay between pickup and drop off, which I think is a good thing for kids.
Oh,
because
it's an instant transition.
Yes. I think
Great.
and of course this is going to happen. It's not always going to be able to be at school, but the beauty of school is, let's say mom drops off in the morning and dad's picking you up today.
Yeah.
They have the whole day to adjust to that idea, right? It's not like an immediate separation from mom.
Right.
They're already saying goodbye to mom. Okay, great. It's my normal separation.
Yeah.
I'm going to school.
Yes.
And then they have the whole day to come around with, okay, and dad's picking me up.
Yeah.
Versus mom's dropping them off at dad's house or dad's picking them up from mom's house. It's like they have to deal with that in more of an acute sense.
Yeah, it's really
I think
fast
it's a lot
transition.
harder.
I agree.
I know
That's
it's
a
a
really
lot
good
harder.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you're doing it.
School is definitely, to me, the ideal.
And thinking historically, likely different parents were picking up and dropping off anyways when they were together.
Right.
So they're used to that already.
People carpool. It's not so out of the realm of normal to have.
It's not obvious also to their friends. Oh, look, parent B is picking up.
Exactly.
Well, I saw parent A drop off. What's happening in your family life? Like kids don't notice. They don't care. They're super comfortable. They're out of their own heads and just into the element, which is really good.
And to facilitate that, though, I will add that, some people, when they transition their kids, they have like a bag that they pack. And so I'll talk a bit more about that later and why that's maybe not a good idea to send your kids with a bag, because it makes them feel like a visitor in someone else's home. I was going to
say.
So school
not only that, but it calls them out in the schoolyard. Why are you showing up with a duffel?
Right. So my advice is don't do it. Find another time to exchange items if you need to.
Needed,
But send them to school with their regular stuff. So it's not different.
Yes. I think, and that's it, right? They don't want to be different. They don't want to stand out. They don't want to be noticed.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, we're making general sweeps, right? A lot of kids maybe do want the attention or what have you. But I think for the most part, the kid's goal in school is like blend in.
Yeah.
You have your friends and you just like do your thing and you come out unscathed.
Right.
So that's ideal for low conflict. Now you kind of alluded to high conflict. And I know I've had clients that the cop shop was the only option for transitions.
And
that was their reality.
That's a real thing.
And it is a great option because safety built right in.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no place or safe. No safer place
than a police station.
a police station.
Right.
So if that is an option, take it.
Even if it has to be temporarily.
Yeah.
While there's some type of peace bond or peace order, whatever it's called, in place. But to be honest, is it great for the kids?
I know.
Like, is it that the great message that the kids get? You may not have a choice.
Yeah.
It might be that's your only
and
option.
Safety has to trump anything.
Yes. And I think if there's other areas though that you could go to, like a supervised access center, perhaps.
Even just a neutral.
A Tim Hortons.
Exactly.
A lot of my clients just like, you know what, we're going to just pick up and drop off at Tim Hortons. It's not my house. It's not her house. It's just easy. And it's a public place, the mall sometimes.
Yeah.
So like
McDonald's, like whatever is easy and the kids like. Right? Like, not that you're bribing them, go grab a donut for this thing, but they have fond memories of getting a donut
or a hot chocolate, and dad's going to pick you up, and there you go.
Exactly. Hey, Amanda, do you know what's better than one mediator?
What, Alex?
2 mediators.
Are you referring to the DL divorce?
You know it. And for our listeners that don't, we are here to remind you that your favorite podcast hosts are also accredited mediators who work with countless clients to support them through divorce and separation.
And our preference is, of course, to support our clients together.
So if you're curious about what co-mediation looks like with Amanda and I at the helm, click on the link in our bio.
Yes, and if you use the promo code DLDivorce, we are offering our listeners 15% off their first retainer.
So you talked about the suitcase. I think that's really key. Let's talk more about that.
Yeah.
You mentioned kids feeling like a visitor
in
their own homes.
And then responsible for having to like, this belongs at mom's, this belongs at dad's. And that inevitably will happen where they bring something home. It's like, no, this belongs at dad's house. But I think trying to minimize that as best as you can. And that might mean the parents on another time dropping off items, right? Like, you know what? It's a Thursday at 2:00. I'm going to drop off Johnny's hockey bag at your house.
Yes, because not many are in the privileged position of having duplicates of everything,
no,
right? You'll have
exactly,
the basics.
Exactly.
But assuming Johnny has 2 sets of hockey gear. Crap, Johnny probably can't even have 1 set. It's so expensive. So really focusing on, okay, this is a parent problem.
Right.
This is an adult
The
issue.
kids don't need to be schlepping all that
They don't
stuff
need
back
to
and
know
forth.
where their hockey gear is.
It just needs to arrive and
be
exactly.
ready. Yeah.
And parents do the behind the scenes.
But let's talk about things like pajamas,
Yes.
toothbrush, hairbrush. Like these are basics. Duplicates are required.
Duplicates.
We're not schlepping toiletries back and forth.
Right.
The kids, like you said, don't need to be worried about, oh my God, I left my toothbrush at mom's. Now what am I going to do?
Right. They
like,
should have duplicates of the basics.
The basics.
Right. But there are going to be times where mom drops them off at school. They're wearing their jeans from mom's house. They go to dad's. So those type of clothing are going to have to be.
Or they maybe forgot their favorite stuffy or,
Right.
you know, whatever. Then yes, once again, be the adult.
Yeah.
Support them.
Yeah.
And work offline to get their gear back and forth without involving them.
Yeah, I've done the drive at night and dropped something off because I knew that one of my kids wanted it, needed it for the next day, and it's what you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
To make their lives more comfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what other kinds of logistical considerations?
I think the number of transitions is
good
really
one.
important
Yeah.
to consider.
Yeah.
Because you think about, okay, we're going to switch every 2 days, 2 to 3 or something like that. But think about how many transitions that is a week.
Yeah.
Like 6 transitions for your kids a week. It's a lot.
So again, going back to your hotel analogy, think
Yeah.
about changing rooms
Like every day or every 2 days.
other day.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Or you wake up in one room and you go to bed in the other
Yeah.
room. Like and I get that it's like your familiar place because it's mom's house and dad's house, but they always say, like the research always says, minimize the amount of transitions if possible.
And we know that that's age specific.
Yes.
The younger they are, the more access they need to, well, predominantly mom, let's say, but to both, right? It has to be frequent. So
they're going to have more
visits.
transitions as little ones
Yeah.
versus the older kids can, they can pick their own schedule. They can do longer stretches with each parent. They can get themselves to and from places.
Right.
So they have some more autonomy over it. So it's different as they grow up. But for little ones, if you can minimize the transition.
So I think that's kind of all the sort of hiccups. What about if we parlay into some solutions? Because I think if we keep things sort of high level, we want to minimize the impact of these transitions.
Yeah.
How can we do that? How can we support our children? Because if they are at an age, or if your separation agreement is such that you're doing a 2-2-3, or you are transitioning a lot, how can we smooth that out for them?
Right.
And we make that experience less jolting to their nervous systems.
I think one thing is keeping them in the loop. So making sure it's not like, they're blindsided by who's picking them up or what's happening, so that maybe they have a calendar, or whether it's a visual calendar, or if they're older, they can put it in their phones. But they know, okay, this is mom's day, this is dad's day.
And I think giving them back some semblance of control really helps. So yes, I love a visual aid. I mean, think about, you're a teacher, right? You always had charts up and things up. Kids want to see. Maybe that's like with a picture, or, basic words, or color coded.
Yeah.
They want to see, they want to have control over knowing what's coming up.
Right. It's a not knowing that, like, where am I going today and what am I doing? And sometimes that's going to happen where their kids are going to forget, and, just reminding them. But I also think what's important, in addition to consistency, is your buying into it. I think that's huge because how you behave as a parent around these transitions is going to have a huge impact on it.
Yeah. And it is going to be hard for you, especially if this is new, where you're not having your kids, where you are having to go and drop them off and say goodbye to them. You're likely to be a basket case the first, couple goes. Yeah. So, and you have to stay strong for them.
You have to keep it together, cry in a parking lot afterwards, and it happens. And, I've done it. And you just have to show the kids that, what, this is something that we both have bought into. We're both supporting.
Yes.
You might hate that they're going at 9 a.m. or you may hate the schedule.
You may hate the ex.
You may hate your ex.
But you still have to support the parenting plan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, not saying, oh my God, I'm going to miss you so much. And I'm going to be so sad that you're not with me. That's not fair. That's not fair to these kids. They don't deserve that.
Yeah. We don't want to burden them with our emotion.
Yeah, they should be worried
feelings.
about you. And my kids are, I've been doing it for a long time, but in the early days, my kids would be like, well, what are you going to do? And I'm like, well, mommy, has plans. I'm going to be very busy and I'm working and I'm doing this. And like, I never want them to feel that I'm just like sitting at home pining away for them.
That's too much pressure.
But I also don't want them to feel that I'm like doing doing these amazing things that they're missing out on. So it's a real balance because you don't want them to worry, but you also don't want them to feel like they're missing out. So it's just like, I'm working. That's just
right.
I'm very busy working. So that's
catching up on all my errands.
Exactly.
That I don't
I'm doing my grocery shopping and my laundry, and I'm working.
Because no kid wants to do errands.
Exactly. It's all the things that they want to do with the doctor and the dentist.
Exactly.
Yes.
Get a teeth clean. Get a root canal.
Yeah, I'm doing all those things. Exactly.
So figuring out managing your own, let's say, self-care and emotions on your own time. That's a different episode.
Right. But that's an adult issue.
Right. So supporting your kids, that looks like giving them visual aids.
Yeah.
That looks like maybe they do have a little stuffy or something cute. There was a book that I read, and I'm gonna have to put it in the show notes because my memory is the shits. It was like the invisible string.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And basically it's this idea that you and your children are connected by this invisible string. And whenever they tug on it, you feel it and you're thinking of them. And whenever you tug on it, they feel it and they're thinking of you. So you're connected even when you're not. Yeah, you are always bonded, even if you're not physically together. You're always emotionally and mentally together. And so I think that's something really, and so that's an invisible one.
Right.
That if your kid will learn that way, or if that's something that they will connect to you with, that's a great one. Some kids are neurodivergent or HSPs, or they have anxieties. How are we supporting those kids?
Yeah.
That might be something where, again, a different episode, or bring in a professional.
You might have to adjust your parenting plan. It might be different for your different kids. If you have a child with special needs, their plan might look different than maybe the other kid.
One thing I love that Dr. Becky, my number one gal,
Dr. Becky.
One thing she uses the word tricky a lot.
Okay.
And I like this word, and so I'm perpetuating this and I'm putting it out there to those that aren't familiar, because it doesn't actually assign an emotion to your child. It doesn't tell them what they are feeling.
Right.
Because a lot of kids, we know, they're young, they don't have the vocabulary often to come up with the words to describe their emotions. So by using this idea of like tricky, that could mean sad, mad, frustrated, angry, like whatever those are for them, it's just kind of like a blanketed
permission to feel something.
Yes. You're saying this is probably going to feel tricky to you.
This feels different for you. Mm-hmm. It's tricky.
But it's not assigning adult.
Like this feels sad or this feels bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Your adult
So consider
feelings.
using that when you're talking to your kids, right? Talk to them about how they are feeling. Ask them questions. Stay curious. Just because you're feeling one way doesn't mean that's how they're feeling.
Right.
If you have, multiple kids, one could feel one way and one could feel some way completely different. So keeping that in mind and having, discussions where they feel like they can bring forth whatever the emotions are they're feeling. And then maybe there's ways to work around it. Maybe there isn't. And maybe that just looks like telling them you love them and holding them tight when you can and just saying, I know that this is tricky.
Yeah, it's tricky for me too. And that's okay. You can validate and say, you know what? Yeah, it is tricky for me too.
So another way to sort of make a bridge of connection, I guess, when you're not with your kids, like I said, the invisible string is such a good one, or having something more tangible. So maybe it's like a friendship bracelet, or maybe it's like a little stuffy, or something small. Maybe it's a picture that they can bring back and forth that bonds the two of you, or the three of you, or 12 of you, however many children you have, that they always have this connection. They can look down at their friendship bracelet that you two made for each other, and they can think of, mom, or they can look at the baseball card that was dad's as a child that he now gifted to, his kid, and have this connection. Like whatever that sort of tangible piece I think could be really helpful for some kids that need that. And I think the key is know your kids. What do they need?
Yeah.
And trial and error. I mean, we talk about this a lot in mediation, right?
Yeah.
Try it out. If it doesn't work, try something different.
And I think you have to really approach your parenting plan like that. And so many people don't, because it takes them so long to get to that agreement, right? Whether it's court intervention or it's, hours and hours of mediation, negotiation. It takes so long for them to maybe get to that agreement that they're afraid to even upset the apple cart and change it a little bit. But you might have to. If your kids are not doing well, if they're showing signs of distress, if they're lashing out, you might have to change your parenting plan to fit your kids.
Yes.
You also mentioned something about, how the kids feel going back and forth, but it reminded me of blended families, because with, the new definition of family is so
Such a good
so
point.
different. And so, right. So it looks so different that you might have, Susie who stays at home, who's 3 because it's mom's new husband, let's say, and her kids from her previous marriage have to go back and forth.
Right.
And how do you explain that?
Different schedules for different kids.
Yeah,
That's
you might
tricky
have,
too.
mom's new husband, Bob, and his kids who are on a different schedule.
Well, that was like when we were talking to Maria.
Yeah, and they're all on different schedules. It's ideally you can match them up as best as you can, but if you have a new sibling who's not going anywhere, they're sitting there, they don't have a parenting plan.
Yeah.
It's hard.
That is hard. Then you're getting into guilt and all kinds of other emotions.
And why does one kid not have to go back and forth and go to different houses, but I have to?
Yeah.
Right?
Reminding the kids, this is what you're talking about, validation, and reminding them that they have done hard things, right?
Yeah.
That they have successfully executed on things that they found to be tricky previously.
Yeah.
So remember when you were going to school for the first time and you cried every single day for a month? But look at you now. You've been in school for the whole year. You did it. Like building up their confidence to navigate these difficult transitions because, they're not going away. Transition is part of life. Child or adult, be damned. So building up their confidence to know like, okay, yeah, I can do this. It's going to be hard and I'm going to have feelings around it, but I've done it before and I can do it again. And I think that really helps them.
Yeah.
Especially as the transitions get more and more. That's a big one. So what other kinds of tips can we offer? I know consistency and routine, we kind of touched on this. So having a visual aid, having a calendar, having like specific dates that they know upcoming.
Yeah.
Is it a week calendar? Is it a month calendar? Can they write in the things themselves, like again, age specific, where they feel some autonomy over it?
Yeah.
That really, really helps. But you have to be on the same page.
With your co-parent?
With the co-parent. And that's where things really get a bit
tricky.
Thanks, Becky.
Yeah. And as you were speaking, I'm thinking about, okay, let's say school is the like ideal transition point. But if you are doing house to house, or you are doing maybe the Tim Hortons, or you are doing some place where you're actually interacting with your co-parent.
Yeah.
Something I always remind my clients is this is not the time to talk about contentious things.
Yes.
So you might be just boiling inside because something that they did or something that they didn't do. Yeah. And you might want to just give a little dig or say something, I guess you got the girlfriend in the car, or like who knows what's going to come out. Yeah. But you really have to bite your tongue and be like professional and not bring up any of those things during transition time, because it's only going to make your children more stressed.
Yeah.
And they pick up on it.
They really do.
They really, really
Any kind
do.
of energy. You have to just check it. Check your ego at the door. Yeah. Park it. It doesn't belong. You're an adult. You can cope with your own emotions. The kids can't cope with yours.
Right.
So don't do it.
Yeah.
If at all avoidable. With younger kids, I find maybe role play helps, or storytelling. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have one more sleep. Yeah. And then when you wake up, we're going to go to school just like we always do. And then you're going to go to class and you're going to see Mrs. So-and-so and Mr. whoever. And then you're going to eat that tuna sandwich for lunch. And then, so-and-so is going to pick you up from school and you're going to go to their house. And like kind of role playing or remind. And then remember, like we did that last week.
Their day.
Yeah. So that they're like, they can anticipate what's coming.
Yeah.
And find some comfort in that.
Yeah.
And then again, like highlight those successes that they've had in the past when things were tricky. And I always just think with kids, ask them questions. We make up so many assumptions for them, and we try and put our big feelings onto
they're handling things, how they're internalizing things.
And as we know, when you tell your kids, okay, we're mom and dad or mom and mom or whomever, we're divorcing, we're gonna be the questions that they ask are like, what am I going to switch schools? Yeah. Well, where are my clothes going to be? What's my room going to be like?
It's very egocentric.
It is.
And that's okay.
So don't forget that, and don't let your anxiousness or your feelings about transitions cloud theirs. So stay curious. Ask a bunch of questions so that they dictate how they're feeling and you don't start to push things onto them inadvertently. And then, I think I have a highly anxious child. So anytime I can, I'm letting them know what's going on.
What's coming
Yeah.
down the pipeline.
Even think about it with video games, right? Or screen time. Like, okay, you have this much time. I will give you a 5-minute warning.
Yeah.
Then I will give you a 2-minute warning. Then you need to get off. I know if I'm in the middle of something and somebody just asked me to stop everything that I was doing and do something completely different, like,
yeah,
I'm going to have feelings about that too. Right. So I love warnings. I love schedules, predictability, all of that kind of stuff. And then consistency.
You know your kid best. You know what's going to set them off. You know that so for some kids, maybe discussing these things at night is a good thing. Maybe it's not for some kids if they're, anxious before they go to bed. So you really have to, I guess it's trial and error.
Yeah. And I think one last thing, maybe to end on, unless you have more, is remember that, I don't know if it's just children or like a human thing, but the 5-to-1 ratio, I don't know if you know this one. It's like you need 5 positives to counteract the one negative. So like we always talk about this, like comments or likes, right? You're like, oh my God, this person left such a trolling comment. Meanwhile, the other 30 were so positive. It's like the only thing you can focus on. Kids are the same.
Yeah.
So again, 5 compliments. You did this so well last time and you were so brave or you whatever, like reminding them. We're so quick to nitpick. Oh, you forgot to clear the table. You forgot to make your bed. And it is our job as parents because we have to teach them these things. But you gotta counteract with the good.
Labeled praise.
Yes. Yeah. So 5-to-1 ratio. And if you need more help and more support, you know where to find us.
This episode was written and created by Alex Howard and Amanda Silver. Produced, edited, and engineered by RTF Productions. Make sure to rate and review our show if you loved it, and give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast to stay up to date on all upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening. And go easy on us. We're not your ex.